Okay, we should be live.
Turn on Do Not Disturb. If I can remember how to. Yep, there it is.
All right, there we go. I'm gonna try to. So I ended up with about, I want to say like 16 or 18, something like that, podcasts when I first started doing it. Obviously, whenever you're new into the sport, you're a whole lot willing to go down that rabbit hole than
Yeah.
what, you know. Like we were talking earlier, the want to even watch uh, arm wrestling podcasts is actually there, versus whenever you're in it for a while, it's definitely not there.
Yeah, to me, it's even arm wrestling. I'm not like huge on watching it unless it's like in person. Like unless like I'll watch like the mat card if Doug's pulling on it or something, or if another teammates or another training partner's pulling. I'll watch their videos or I'll watch that. But as far as like the East versus West goes, I don't really watch them. I kind of don't like to really. It just takes a bunch of time, and
See, I
I
don't
don't
mind.
know.
I don't mind watching them.
I like to compete. I don't really like to watch as much. Just makes me want to compete.
I can. I don't mind watching. I particularly I enjoy watching matches that are close. Obviously, nobody likes to watch people get smacked around,
Right.
but I do enjoy watching those 3-2s, that people post on social media and stuff like that, where it's like a nice battle back and forth. Man, if it's entertaining, I don't care who's pulling. Like it could be two novice guys, and as long as it's like close, they're doing it safely. Man, I love watching that.
Yeah, like I'll every now and again I'll watch like a couple East versus West matches back, like if I can find them on YouTube or something, but I'm just not big on paying for it. Um Personally, I just don't like spending money. Like, yeah, not gonna lie. And they're getting more expensive, which is fine, but
Yeah,
for me it's not. It's expensive for me. I don't like to pay for it.
I mean, it's fair, fair.
I mean, because it's starting to become a trendy thing, which is great. I love the fact that it's a trendy thing for arm wrestling to be a pay-per-view sport. Um, but it's starting to get to the point to where like a lot of these promotions are all going to pay-per-view, and it's like this, man. It's just like the UFC. I mean, you can catch that fight a week later, know who the winner is same day, and then just watch it a week later. Watch highlights or
Right, right, right.
uh, I don't know. Maybe if I had the money to just kind of throw around and buy them all and not have to bat an eye at it,
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't be such an issue. I just hate spending money,
I
and
don't,
I
brother.
want to
I
compete.
I don't blame you one bit. It's tough. Hopefully, we'll get some reprieve here on groceries and gas and everything.
Yeah, it's looking that way. I think gas prices are at an all-time low. The last like 4 years, and I think
I saw 2.49 in Kent when I went and got my daughter from school.
that's pretty good. That's
Yeah,
pretty good.
it's running average about, I want to say, 2.89 in town where I live.
I want to say that was the big. A lot of people were kind of stuck on that. The play on words there with the Gulf of America, but I want to say that had to do with drilling for oil.
It did.
Um, yeah, so it was kind of which a lot of people didn't look at that. They just looked at the fact he was changing the name, which to me, I I could care less
There
about the
was
name.
something
Yeah.
about, the previous administration put some sort of thing on to where they couldn't add any more
Yeah.
oil wells in the Gulf of Mexico, so they just changed the name. So
So
you
now they can.
now
Yes. Easy loophole.
I do
Easy
believe
loophole.
that's what it was, but I could be wrong. I'm not.
Well, it's, and I don't know if they've moved forward with that or not, but coincidentally, since that has happened, gas prices have gone down. So, I mean, you know,
Yeah,
would be
uh,
really cool if that's the reason why.
I would be surprised if you know any were put in since January. I highly doubt that, but you never know. I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard telling. I have no idea what's going on, to be honest. I don't think any of us really actually have any idea of what's going on. Um, the news and social media and everything is such a back and forth. Like, this is happening, that's happening, this isn't true, that's not true. It's so hard to tell what's actually happening.
The Big Hop says howdy.
How's it going?
Okay, just waiting on some people to get in here. We'll get the show started about 7:03. We gotta. I went ahead and shared it to my Facebook.
Okay.
Let me go ahead and share that to the UAW group at least. That way, you get a couple more people in here watching. Did you did you see that one video? I'm sure you had to have seen it.
Oh, the arm wrestling, the dude
Sean
arm
Hancock.
wrestling.
Yeah, Sean
Yeah.
Hancock video. Oh my goodness.
Man, what and I wanted to comment it, but I didn't really comment a whole lot on it because there were so many people commenting. And
Oh yeah, yeah,
like, when I'm in a tournament, if I've already pulled, even if I've only pulled one time, somebody grabbing my arm and yanking it like shocks your arm and releases, like, it just stretches your tendons for like that quick second.
yeah,
And it just shocks you. That hurts so bad.
yeah.
Like, I've, it's like slipping. The deeper you go into a tournament, slipping becomes painful. Like, as soon as you
Yeah.
slip, you get that just, release of like,
Oh, yeah.
oh my gosh.
Did it? It looked to me as if the gentleman might have been drunk.
Yeah, that, and I think confused on the rules because he kept trying to like grab the elbow. You know how like
Mm.
back in the day they used to brace elbows?
Right.
I think he was really confused at first on how they actually were arm wrestling. I don't think he's ever arm wrestled before.
Oh no, no, for sure.
Um, yeah, but yeah, probably intoxicated too. That's a huge problem within arm wrestling. Is all these events are at bars and kind of allows that kind of behavior to go on. Um, I mean, people run up bar tabs and waiting for their class in a tournament. Next thing you know, they're hammered, and now they're competing in a sport where testosterone levels are rising. It can become pretty bad. Get a lot
Yeah.
of liquid courage in somebody who's not able to control their emotions, sober, let alone drunk, because that's really what it boils down to. When you're drunk, you're kind of just your personality is kind of just amplified a little more.
Hmm.
The biting your tongue is kind of out the door. You're more likely to do those things that you would second guess if you were sober. So I think that was what happened. Um, and the dude's probably seen himself on social media already. He's probably ashamed of
Oh,
himself. Um,
giving himself the old smack in the forehead.
Yeah, and really, I think it's one of the things. I don't know the guy, so I can't say whether he's a bad dude or not. But it's life. We're all human. We all make mistakes. I think an apology to the refs and competitors would be a good first step to kind of making things right. But other than that, man, I mean,
I'll
we
be
all make
surprised.
mistakes. Things happen. What is it?
I would be surprised if he shows his face ever again, but that's just a guess.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't really look like he knew what was going on, anyways. So it's really not his place, you know. And he didn't do good in the tournament. So that being said, you know, he's probably not going to show back up. But
Probably not.
at the very least, you know, if dude has a Facebook, you know, the 0.01% chance the dude is watching the podcast, get on there and apologize. Like
Yeah.
apologize to Sean, apologize to your opponents. Um,
Hey, shout out to the young man that he was arm wrestling. I guess he was only like 17 years old or something like that.
Yeah, he kept his composure really well. I
He was
can't
like, "What the
say
heck?"
that I would have been able to keep my composure like that with somebody, you know,
Yeah,
grabbing my elbow, yanking my arm across the table. And there comes to be a point where I'm just going to refuse to arm wrestle you. Like, you know, at that point, like you're acting all aggressive, you're being that way. Um, I'm not pulling you. Like, because it's going to turn into something else, is what's going to happen. If you're acting like that from you know, from the rip, first match,
yeah,
never been up on the table before, whatever, and you're already being that way, you know, it's just it's pointless. Get
yeah.
them off
Exactly.
the table.
Adam Finley, what up, fellas? What's up, Adam? How's it
How's it
going?
going?
Yeah, that was. I was just like, as soon as I saw that video, I was like, "Oh my goodness, what the heck?"
Yeah, I was just kind of like, I'm not surprised. I'm more so surprised that this hasn't happened before. Like we haven't
Oh,
seen
I'm
that
sure it
kind
has.
of,
Just it, you know,
but
with
not on a table cam.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly the way social media goes nowadays, it's like, oh boy.
well, I mean, like let's be honest here. I think you know, there's been certain higher level pros that have acted this exact same way, but because they have a following, they don't
mm,
really get, you know, targeted as much. There's been high level pros that have started fights and people don't bat an eye because, oh, he's a good arm wrestler. And it's like, dude, it doesn't matter how good of an arm wrestler you are. At the end of the day, if you're acting like that, um, it's not for you. Clearly, you can't control your emotions,
yep.
you know.
Now I did see a couple comments, and they said playing the devil's advocate that they liked seeing the aggression on the table.
Yeah, I saw that too. I
I was
highly
like,
disagree with that.
I was like,
Aggression on the table, if you want to smack the pad, if you want to yell,
right,
if you want to get
yeah,
your you know, get your heart rate up, get yourself
yeah,
hyped up, whatever,
yeah,
that's fine. But when you start disrespecting,
yeah.
that's when it's like
That
that's not
grab like
necessary.
that, like they just you just grip somebody and yank their arm across the table, dude. You're lucky. If that was anybody else besides a 17-year-old kid, they the dude probably would have got punched in the mouth.
Yeah, that I think I did comment that too. Like if it was normalized, you know, if people got smacked in the mouth for that kind of behavior, it probably wouldn't happen to begin with. You know, cause and effect.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
can't act that way, especially towards people that you don't know. You know, there's definitely some loose cannons within this sport, and if you don't know people or know
Oh,
their
yeah.
background or know how they are, definitely probably shouldn't act like that. But that was also probably in the amateurs. Um,
I'd say yeah, amateur,
I
very
was
amateur. He probably was a novice class. I don't know.
yeah,
It just depends on what kind of classes he has, but I would say novice for sure. That as far as the guy's level, it didn't look like he had any clue on what he was.
no, looked like a middle-aged dude that probably goes to the bar on the weekends and arm wrestles people for fun and is doing pretty decent against non-pullers and decided to jump into something that was local to him and
Dude.
kind of made an ass out of himself.
We've talked about this at practice before. Like how much money an actual decent arm wrestler could hustle people out of,
I've
like,
made $200 at a
oh
bar
my God,
before arm wrestling. This was prior to shoulder surgery. This was a couple years ago, and I wasn't really hustling. I mean, they knew that I was a professional arm wrestler. Like I didn't hide that. They just
mhm.
thought they could actually beat me.
Wow.
So I made like $200, or maybe it was like 250. Um, but
You
yeah,
imagine like somebody like 165 pounds, not very thick as far as showing it, but has like just a crazy good top roll, and then just goes in and just hustles, so many people out of money. Like I think it's very well possible.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Very,
mean, like and I've arm wrestled like non-pullers and stuff. Not too crazy recently, but probably within the last year. I've gotten, on like a table somewhere, or like, a couple guys at work or something, I've arm wrestled some non-pullers, and it's just there's such a gap in strength. Like whether the dude goes to the gym or not, and it's not just the strength from, arm wrestling going sideways, but from the hand, the wrist, um, you know, just the kind of the same with table IQ, but you can't really utilize your table IQ that much. It's kind of like being a professional boxer and getting into like a street fight or something. The
right.
rules are going to be a little different. You're not going to be as uh, I guess orthodox. It's going to be a little more orthodox
Yeah.
because people are going to slide their elbows around. People are going to grip.
Freedom.
And yeah, yeah, people are gonna do whatever they want. So typically for me, I'll just throw somebody in a hook and sit there and just let them burn their arm out, and then put them straight
Yeah.
down to the table. That seems to be about the safest way. Because and then if I see them doing something crazy, I'll go with them. Like so, if I see them like pushing, I'll just kind of rotate my arm around it, keep them from getting hurt. Uh,
Hmm.
because even like, and I tell these people like watch your hand, and even when I tell them to watch their hand, I still am like, yeah, there's still a slight possibility you could snap your arm right now,
This
even
this
watching their hand. Like,
this came up also recently about the whole tournaments not having novice and amateur class and only having uh open classes. Like the this is the thought process. Okay, a novice pulling a novice, very dangerous, right?
yeah,
An amateur pulling an amateur, slightly less dangerous because they kind of know what they're doing, but still dangerous. A pro or open class puller pulling a novice, very safe.
yeah, I think the amateur and novice class really, what it boils right down to is entry fees. Tournaments make more money.
Yeah.
Less amateur or novice guys are going to want to go
Now,
to a
now,
tournament when they see that
now that
it's only
aside,
open.
with that aside, I'm not even talking about entry fees, and I understand that the some promoters want to get as much as they can, whatever.
Well, and it's
But
not only that. I think
said
it's more people
safety.
showing up.
Yeah, I'm just
You
talking
know,
safety. You know what I mean? Like if you don't want to see arm breaks, just let a novice guy pull a pro, and the pro guy is going to 100% keep that guy safe.
yeah, I mean, do the best we can. I mean, there's only so much you can do if somebody's positioning is really whack. But 9 times out of 10, you can always, kind of get that turned around. I mean, once somebody's hand busts backwards, the whole pushing that way thing,
Mm-hmm.
they don't like that, because that's painful. Flop pressing is
Oh yeah,
painful.
oh yeah,
Flop pressing is something that not a lot of amateurs do. Um, it's more so when you go in a hook with those amateurs that they want to start pushing with their tricep, and which is great. Pressing and pushing with your tricep, utilizing your tricep is great on the table, but it's great for a conditioned puller,
right.
a seasoned athlete. But no, I think personally I like the fact of an all open tournament. Actually, my first tournament I went to was open class only,
Yeah.
back in 2021 up in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Um, I got second right and left-handed, and it was
Oh,
all open. Yeah, it was pretty good.
nice.
But
Oh,
you know, I was, I was, I guess you could call me, of course, amateur back then because stylistically I wasn't as sound, but I never really put myself into that like spot where I was always pulling. I was never really pushing. Even when I
right.
went into a press, it was a quick surge, but it was still, kind of a safe, way. And then when I started getting pulled over, I always followed my arm. I never tried to, it wasn't really until a few years into pulling that once I got outside of my shoulder, I was like, no, I can grind here because I've done this so many times now.
Hmm.
And but with that being said, of course, you always have to have your pronator when you're grinding there, and you're still pulling back. I mean, there's a lot of small pressures that you have to apply to be able to pull outside of your shoulder. It's not just like you're trying to rip across the table that way.
We got Josh Bunner in the house tonight. What's up, Josh?
How's it
Postelino.
going?
No need to be ignorant on the table. We go to tournaments to pull, not to fight. That's toxic behavior for sure.
Absolutely.
Drew 24 is here. What up, Drew? How's it going, brother? We got a few people in here. There's a couple. So we'll go ahead and get started. Uh, Welcome everybody to the Winning Side Podcast. I am your host, Billy Collins, alongside with my co-host, Mr. Cody Smith.
That's me.
Welcome everybody to the show. This podcast brought to you by Grip Arm Sport. So if you guys don't have some arm wrestling apparel, go to griparmsport.com and make sure you buy a t-shirt, hoodie, strap, anything. Support those who support the community. Definitely want to thank Adam DeFrank, the owner of Grip Arm Sport, for everything that he does for the community, for sure. So, topics for today. First, what I want to talk about. Cody, we got less than 2 weeks away, brother.
Less than 2 weeks.
With Brandon Elsesser.
Yeah.
Uh,
Um,
how do you feel going in? I know you're probably maybe one more table practice, or was your last?
no. Yeah, my last table practice was on Saturday.
Oh yeah,
Just did, I think, 5 or 6 ready goes. Nothing crazy, no slow pulling. Very minimal time under tension. That's one of the huge things for me. If I'm getting ready to compete, I think the time under tension is more important than anything. If you're keeping um, that time under tension really low, you're less likely to be beat up when you go into the tournament or that match because your tendons aren't really taking all that wear and tear that they would at like a normal practice where you would do more slower pulling
mm,
to condition, everything. But yeah, I've got a um, deep tissue massage scheduled for Sunday with Move Better Massage Therapy. That's down in Kettering, Ohio here.
cool.
And that's kind of just to get the kinks out of, my upper back, my arms, my shoulders. This has been a super heavy push for me. Um, Moved a lot of heavy weight, hit PRs and every lift of mine. Um, Weight stayed pretty good. Um, yeah, needless to say, I'm pretty beat up right now. Really beat up from the last, just the last 6 weeks of, heavy, heavy training. And,
Yeah.
but, nonetheless, I feel good. Um, Next week is going to be all just kind of light, rest recovery and light stuff and a lot of heat and ice therapy and really just making sure all that inflammation is gone. And then, yeah, and then we go to pull Mr. El Cesor. So that'll
Um,
be good.
Let me ask you this: has Doug given you any data on yourself as far as what he has felt? Just the reason why I say this is I understand, and I know that you don't do specific arm wrestling movements in the gym per se. I know you do some, right? You do some pronation, maybe supination here and there, but um,
Yeah.
has Doug given you the data that you may have been looking for?
Yeah, I mean, my hand's on, a completely different level than what it was 6 months ago, even when I was pulling Daniel Worley. And Daniel Worley's hand is ridiculous. And my hand was good then. My hand's on a completely different level now. As far as strength goes, from a side pressure, point, it's my side pressure is stronger than ever right now. Really, my fast twitch fibers are all firing great. My ready goes are all crisp. Every match is looking, very very dialed in. My precision, my speed, my power. Um, Really a lot of discipline on just staying a little tighter and not rushing, a finish as early as what I'm, kind of used to. And you get into those bad habits, those bad habits form when you pull, um, when you pull with guys that are at a lower level. You pull a lot of tournaments where you're, consistently, beating people off the ready go with that explosive power, and then you get stopped. And when when you don't get stopped very often, it gets to the point where it's like, okay, now you have to grind here, and you kind
Mhm.
of rush yourself, get out of position. So that's been something that I've worked on a lot, and really just more of a discipline thing there. But yeah, as to answer your question, yeah, I'm pretty confident,
Right.
to say the least. I feel really good. Um,
Now, are you writing down all your data as far as your lifts and everything? You keeping track of everything?
yeah,
And
so everything's on video. Um, so like I did, and I don't, like I said, I don't max out on like the pronation or supination or any like supinated side pressure training or um, rising, any of those movements, wrist curls. I don't ever max out on those. Those are always pretty.
yeah,
Now, I don't want to say crazy high volume. At the highest, sets of 20 to 25, and at the lowest, sets of 6 to 10. So I think like the best I did, and that's another thing. I try not to fail reps. I don't like going to failure on the tiny muscles like your pronator or
right.
any of the tiny joints in your hand and wrist. Going to failure on that can just lead to injury. And that's kind of the same way I am with my powerlifting training too, or
Right.
just general weight training in general. I don't like training to failure. I like hitting every single rep every week. I like having a plan, going in there, executing said plan, and then progressive overload is always the goal. That's what makes you stronger.
I
But
like
I think the best I did was like 100 pounds on pronation for like 4 sets of 6. Um, and that wasn't crazy hard or anything. And my pronation's a little, it's not the same way Devin does it, where you kind of squat down and just get the weight like a quarter inch off the ground.
it. Yeah,
um, I bring the weight up, I give it a little bit of hang time. I'm seated, it's a lot of just tightening my core, getting my core as tight as possible, and then back pressure and pronation to lift it up. And
I like it. Yeah,
but yeah, I mean that's kind of what's been working so far. I hate to, a lot of people ask me why I don't train other specific, exercises, and I'm like, well, it's nothing's, making me decline. So if it's not broke, don't fix it. I hate to change
right.
something up and then have a bad performance. Then you're in your head telling yourself, this is why. And uh, so, and who's to say I won't change everything up in 6 months?
Yeah, exactly.
It's all just dependent.
Did you did you get to see the last Mac event, and did you watch any of Brandon's matches from that?
Yeah, yeah, I did.
So did you get any data from that? Did you via the matches that he had, did it change your thought process on how you are going about the match with him?
No, game plans, kind of still the same, and I wouldn't even mind to tell him my game plan ahead of time. Really, it's just I'm gonna keep my hand. I'm gonna stay high. Um, Not gonna let him engage where he's strong at. Just keep him out of his strengths, and kind of go from there. If I feel good in a hook, we'll go in a hook. If I feel good um, with a committed top roll, I'll commit to a top roll. If I feel good pressing, I'll press. If I feel good just high side pressure, I'll go there. But really, the game plan right off the rip, first match, goal is to just stay high, stay composed, and kind of see where that window opens, where I can take advantage and try to finish the match. So that's kind of the goal at this point. I've done all I can do with my training. Um, I've done a ton of a ton of high intensity training along with some higher volume. My upper back is kind of something that has gotten just ridiculously strong, and which is great because you get a lot of power from your upper back, and
Yeah.
it's a big muscle, it's a big driver. Back pressure is great with with your hand and your wrist and your bicep and your rear delt, but unless you have that lat there to really start dragging. And yeah, so I've just been trying to build so much horsepower, and I've done all I can do. Knock on wood, I've got 2 training sessions left that are a little, not heavy, but a little heavier than what next week is going to be. Knock on wood, stayed injury free. But I do want to say a big reason as to why I've stayed injury free is hydration, nutrition, sleep, and just correct training. Um,
Yeah.
not overtraining, not destroying my CNS, not consistently failing reps. I think I failed 1 rep, which was a 675 deadlift. And, it really wasn't a crazy bad fail. I got into position, went to pull it, didn't feel it move like when I wanted it to, just,
Right.
stepped away. So, um, but yeah, I think that's a huge thing. If anybody's wanting to stay injury free, training, of course, is a huge part of that, but your hydration, your nutrition, your sleep, and, just making sure that when your body is telling you something, you're listening. The whole training through the pain thing, that's not really a great
Yeah.
way to train. This is 2025. This isn't the 70s and
Yeah.
80s.
That's how I got,
We're a little more calculated
you
now.
know, 2 months ago. I was like, oh yeah, the pain's not that bad. And then I tried to hold on a little bit, and that
Yeah.
wrist, bang.
And that's really
Yeah.
something that like I took 405 for a single and a slingshot on bench. I did 635 for 2 singles on deadlift, both sumo and conventional. Squatted 525. Was doing a lot of heavy compound lifts, and that's one thing you really have to once you start getting up, you know, above, where up above a 500-pound squat, over a 600 deadlift, around that four range, three really mid threes to fours on bench. If you're starting to feel like any burning sensations or any discomfort or any cramping, it doesn't take much to tear a hamstring, to tear a pec, to tear, rear delt, front delt. These muscles can only do so much, and if you're not listening to them, you know, I would rather not do today's training session and even not even do this entire week's training session. Back to the drawing board, reassess, and then
Yeah.
attack it again next week than be on the couch for 6 months recovering because I tore my pec, trying to, train through the pain.
So I got a
Because,
couple comments here.
yeah,
The Drew 24, my moderator, because sleep is my biggest challenge for sure. And then also Adam Finley said sleep is hard for me. I'm up and down every hour and a half, it seems. And then also Colby Eaker, he said Cody does a lot of leg work in the gym. How does he think it impacts him arm wrestling, or does it at all?
yeah. So, and it's funny because I actually get this question a lot because it does, for some people, and if you look at arm wrestling as a sport, um, just at a glance, you don't really see the legs as a huge mover. But my personal opinion, um, building horsepower throughout the entire body is always, it's never going to hurt you. It's always going to help.
Yep.
But the main compound lifts that do have, heavy leg utilization, like squats and, even deadlifts, are also very heavy and very hard on your core. And that's arguably one of the most important,
Yep.
muscle groups on the arm wrestling table.
Yep.
Um, so it really does train your core a lot. Having 525 in my back, not folding me over, my upper back strong, my core strong to support that. Pulling, 635 for singles, things like that. Some could argue and say the deadlift helps build your grip. I've, I think doing grip work helps build your grip. I also do work a manual labor job, so I'm always grabbing things anyway. So
Right.
grip's never really been an issue. But
Right. You ever
on
think
the other
about
hand,
deadlifts with some fat grips?
yeah. So I do like today I did a 4x10 on a axle bar barbell rows, and with each rep I do a wrist curl. So when I get to the top of the rep where my back's contracted, I do a slight wrist curl. And I mean after that, not only is my back,
Yeah, your forearm
super pumped, but my
start.
forearms are, yeah,
Oh,
they're
oh,
going.
yeah,
And a
cooked.
big reason why I do like the 4 sets of 10 over like some heavy fours or heavy fives or even heavy triples is again that time under tension when you're having to hold on to a 2-inch diameter barbell and wrist curl that for 10 reps. That's what, 15, 17, 18 seconds that
Hmm.
you're gripping that, which is
Yeah,
essentially like a fat grip. And there's no on these axle bars that I train with, at least there's no bearings on the sleeves where the weight goes. So it's not like, it's kind of just rolling around. Like you're supporting that weight, and it's not really easing on your grip at all. So all that weight is sitting in my fingers the entire time.
yeah,
So, there's a lot of movements in the gym that do help, in my personal opinion, with arm wrestling that I think are overlooked, like grabbing an axle bar, doing barbell rows, but also doing a wrist curl with each row you do. Just always making the exercise harder on you. Um, it's always going to be beneficial. You can
yeah,
do, bicep curls with a dumbbell, and at the bottom of each rep, you let it fall into your fingers, and then you wrist curl it back up and do another rep.
yeah.
You can throw fat grips on literally anything.
Oh, anything,
So,
man.
there's a ton.
I did want to touch on this just for a second. The fat grips. Oh my goodness, so valuable. Like
Oh, they're great.
you just put fat grips on anything, and it just directly correlates to arm wrestling specific strengths. Strength advantages, and just being able to just grab a hold of your opponent like that instead of like, we don't grab anybody like this. We grab everybody like that, right? So anytime we can put some fat grips on something, man, that's so
It
beneficial.
helps. It's never gonna hurt. And
Never.
that's like my
Yeah.
motto in the gym. People will ask me why I'm doing, you know, a 45-degree back raise with a 50-pound kettlebell or a 60-pound kettlebell. It's like, am I doing a whole lot other than just kind of getting a good pump in my back and getting a good stretch? Well, it's never gonna hurt you if done correctly. So it's not a waste of time.
Right.
Um, and I mean, the same way with kind of how I do pull-ups at the gym. Like our gym has those standard cable crossover machines, and it has the two squared tubing that comes back, and
Yep.
then the pull-up bar off of it. Well, I grab the squared tubing because it's about this close. It's
Beautiful.
neutral grip, and it's squared tubing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
grab it there.
Official for sure.
The same way I do preacher curls isn't, unless I'm doing, two hands at once to go heavier on my biceps. The way I'm doing preacher curls is I'm kind of setting off, inside of my shoulder here, just like I would on the arm wrestling table, and I'm letting
Right.
that weight fall sideways versus, being like right here and letting all that weight go on your biceps. So
Right.
there's a lot of, ways that if people don't think I directly train for arm wrestling, they're kind of mistaken. I try to take these exercises and make them that way. But I do have a handle. I use the wrist max every time I'm at the gym. That's a great handle. Loads of fingers. I do my
Yeah.
pronation, my rising, my supination. Do a little bit of supinated side pressure work, but nothing heavy, nothing crazy that's going to beat me up.
Yeah. Well, that's good.
But
Uh, I did, for anybody that's wanting the Do 24 moderator, he posted the Grip Arm Sport uh, link to their website, and I went ahead and pinned it to the top of the chat. So you guys go ahead and click that link. Go out and check out some arm wrestling apparel. If you can swing it, go ahead and buy a T-shirt or two. Um, but yeah, Colby, he said, "Be a monster everywhere." Got it.
yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's, and I think that really has helped in the last. So coming up in April will be 4 years for me arm wrestling. And when I first got into arm wrestling, all of my lifts that, I think my bench when I first got into arm wrestling was probably, somewhere in like the low threes, probably 305 ish. My squat was probably right around 405. Deadlift was right at 500. Since then, I've put 100 pounds on 100 plus on my squat, 100 plus on my deadlift, 70 to 75 on my bench, along with, every other lift in the gym too. Like,
Mm,
lifts that I don't really count so much, like, sets of 8 to 12 on lat pull downs. Those have went up. Those are huge. Accessory work for me isn't just doing it because it's wrote down on the program and that's what I'm supposed to do. It's I'm always trying to do more than what I did the previous week, but also staying healthy with it, so I'm not
yeah.
again fighting through pain. I cannot stress that enough. The whole fighting through pain is when you have pain, that's the same as having a small tweak. And
Right.
essentially what happens when you keep pushing that small tweak, it turns into an injury, and
Yep.
then it could be minor or severe. It's not something you really want to play with.
Yep. And this comes back to what we were talking about a few shows ago was um, don't think that you have to go to practice every single week. Yes,
Oh,
so
absolutely.
the guy's new to the sport. Okay, yes, if you can, if you're not hurting too bad, get in there, get the knowledge. Absorb as much knowledge as fast as possible. Yes, if you can grasp the knowledge that is being given to you, okay, yes, absorb as much as possible. But if you're hurting and in pain, don't go to practice because you're just going to end up tweaking something and it's not going to be worth it. And it's going to put you more in a setback than it's worth.
Absolutely. And our phones have cameras for a reason.
Yeah.
You can always get mental reps. This was preached a lot to me when I played high school football. When we watched film, it was quote unquote mental reps, and that's you're still actively participating, but you're understanding what is going on rather than just doing it
Yeah.
and then trying to understand. And sometimes that can be a lot to take in. A lot of people ask me why I record literally all of my lifts. I record practices, I record this, I record that. um, I've been recording lifts since I was, the same 14-year-old that a lot of other people, a lot of other 14-year-olds are in that same spot. They don't know how to do, a bench press, a barbell squat, a deadlift, and, they're just kind of doing it. I recorded everything and I always went back and watched it on film. And I was like, you know what? I've seen guys do this. It doesn't look like that. I need to change that. I need to fix that. And it helps, and it's, small steps, small things at a time. Um, I can promise you, if you're newer to the sport and you start recording yourself at practice and watch how you're pulling, then what people are telling you from the outside perspective is going to make so much more sense because you're able to see that. Like, you're able to see, like, okay, I understand where I'm going wrong rather than just, yeah, I'll take your word for it. And then, nothing changes.
Yep.
And it can be stressful. This sport's not easy to learn. If it was, everybody would be, monsters.
Yeah.
Um,
It's definitely a tricky sport to understand. And I tell you what, I always tell all the new guys, it's going to take about six to 12 months for that light bulb to come on. It takes time for you to actually understand how to move on the table fluidly, safely, and effectively, you know. And a lot of it at the beginning is just understanding how to keep your hand in front of your face, elbow tucked, and body manipulation. Use your body to put your arm in the correct position.
yeah,
It takes time. And I see time and time again, maybe not time and time again, but I see from time to time that pullers are a little bit eager to rush their training, and meaning technique. they're in a rush sometimes to learn faster, which is good. I'm glad that people want to learn fast, but some things have to be taught in such a manner and in such a timeline, right? You
Yeah.
don't go directly into, shoulder pressing if you don't know how to hook or whatever, whatever it is. You know what I mean? Like there's fundamentals that have to be learned first. Then we go on to, the intermediate movements, the body manipulation, learn your fundamentals first and then go from there. That's why I say it takes 6 to 12 months, because it takes at least a month or two, maybe 3 months, just to get the fundamentals, keeping
Yeah,
your
and
shoulder in and keeping your arm here. You know what I mean? Like it takes time for these guys to really learn the fundamentals.
that time is also definitely dependent on whether the athlete, or potential um, arm wrestler was an athlete prior.
Yes.
That's a huge thing.
Yeah.
The level of coordination that an individual has plays a huge
Yeah.
factor. Like, there's some people that have been on the table for 2, 3 years. They're just not very coordinated arm wrestlers. So it takes a little longer. And not to say that you can't be good,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
not to
Yeah.
say that you can't get it. It's just, sometimes these things are going to take a little bit longer. Genetics play a huge, huge factor in that. Really within any sport ever. you know, Genetics are always going to play a factor. It's always going to be, the guys at the top. 9 times out of 10, they're going to have top tier genetics as well. It's
Yeah.
just the way it is.
That
Um,
how you were saying about, getting your recording, that kind of brought that was like the perfect opener into the next topic. What I wanted to bring up was uh these arm wrestlers only posting their wins on social media. Like it is
yeah,
so irritating sometimes. Like I know of a couple matches that happened and you don't see any of the losses. They lost 3-1, but they only posted their one win on social media. I'm like, come on, bro. Like you
yeah,
lost
and
that.
I feel like people make that argument. They're like, well, I don't want to give my competition, this and that and what they can do. I don't care. Like, if you watch a dude fold my hand in half and pin me, that's great. You
Yeah,
have to
you
still
put
do
it in
that.
your highlight reel.
Yeah, I
That's great.
mean,
I was happy to see it. I was like, that's great. You know,
yeah, it
you
happens.
learn from your mistakes. You learn from your losses. There's not one.
Absolutely.
If you are a smart puller, you will never come away with a loss with nothing. You know what I mean? You're gonna learn something.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not getting a fire lit, and I'm not just saying a fire lit to train harder or anything else, but a
Yeah.
fire lit from a loss to really assess why you lost.
Oh, and another
Uh,
thing too is like
you know,
if these guys start and are willing to post their losses, like I know that this community would be willing to um, give guys pointers if they were to accept them. Pointers, okay, hey, maybe if you did this or did that, maybe you could have had a different outcome to said match or anything like that. But you
oh,
know,
absolutely,
I
absolutely. I
don't
mean,
think
I'm
that
always
the
willing.
only one that knows everything about arm wrestling. You know what I mean? There's always going to be somebody that knows more, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, there's always somebody out there that's going to have just a little bit more knowledge on some certain part. Yeah, for me, I've always been, one to kind of sit there and if somebody asks for advice, I give them advice. Um, Sometimes my advice might be kind of controversial. That's the problem, and that's kind of why I quit going out of my way to start commenting on people's posts.
Right.
People will ask, like for instance, somebody asked a couple weeks ago, do they think the bench press helps with arm wrestling? My personal opinion, 100%. A stronger chest, a
Yeah.
stronger
Yeah.
delt, center
Especially,
of the table, it's contracted. Like it's
especially
a
hook.
muscle being used.
Yeah.
Um, Now, will bench pressing make you a better arm wrestler? No.
No.
if you are a good arm wrestler, will bench pressing improve, your capability to arm wrestle? No,
Bingo.
but it'll make your strength go up. And
Oh, hello.
that's a huge thing. And
Yeah.
kind of something else, as far as, and a lot of people get this mixed up. Um, you practice how you play, and that's within all sports. The way you practice is the way you're going to compete. So when you're going to practice and you're only slow pulling, and then you get ready to go in that ready to go, platform. You're on the table and you're under arm wrestling rules. You're getting a rest grip, whatever. You're getting a ready go. It's gonna be a foreign thing to you. I don't think I've had a practice go by in years where I haven't done ready goes at least once, because
Hmm.
that's the way we compete. We compete off a ready go. And with that also being said, I'm a pretty explosive arm wrestler. I'm not missing the go very often. Um, so that's a huge thing to me. And something else I kind of wanted to bring up too, was, that there's a time and a place to build strength and to build table IQ. And the arm wrestling table at a table time practice weekly is not for you to, empty the gas tank, beat yourself up. Uh, that's not where you're trying to get stronger. That's where you're trying to become a better arm wrestler.
Yep.
And, coming from a sports background, like when we played football, we practiced Monday through Thursday, had games on Friday. Thursday was a walkthrough. So as close as we could get to the game on Friday. Monday to Wednesday was offense, defense, special teams, kind of the same thing, but more focused on certain other days.
Hmm.
Um, if you wanted to get faster, stronger, jump higher, more explosive, that is done in the off season or on your own time. So, it's kind of the same way with arm wrestling. If you want to become a stronger arm wrestler, not saying better, but a stronger arm wrestler or a faster arm wrestler,
Yep.
table time practice is not where you do that.
Correct.
And that's, just the hardest thing for some people to comprehend, because they think, well, if I want to be good at arm wrestling, I need to arm wrestle. Yes, you need to understand
Yeah.
how to arm wrestle and,
Yep.
constantly drill that. Um, Ring rust is very real in this sport.
Oh,
If
yeah.
you take, 6, 8 months off and you come back and you haven't practiced, you haven't done a ready go, you haven't even slow pulled, things are going to be off. Even if you're great, things are going to be off just the slightest bit. And that's all it takes in the sport to lose.
Yeah.
And that's something I really wanted to bring up, because a lot of people do ask me, how I'm able to train throughout the week pretty heavy and still arm wrestle on the weekends. And I will say, sometimes I am a little achy throughout the week when training if I had a little bit harder of a table practice. Now those harder table practices are typically only done when I'm peaking for something. When I'm getting ready to go into combat, okay, a little bit harder. And it's the same way with, like, a UFC fighter before he has a fight, weeks leading up to that, he's gonna have a little harder sparring to get him ready for that fight.
Yep.
But other than that, a lot of what I try to work on at practice is, things that, whether I'm good at them or bad at them or need to work on them, it's a lot of just the same thing as what newer pullers are working on, is fundamentals.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you're never going to get
Yeah.
away from those.
Yep.
You try to become a better hooker, top roller, presser. I don't really flop press a whole lot at practice. I don't find it beneficial. I find it more, the risk to reward ratio is not there for me. Um,
Right.
but there's a lot. There's so many different angles. If you want to have stronger power at the pin pad, you know, figure out, okay, I need a little more supination, I need a little more pronation, I need my riser a little bit more engaged, whatever. And then guess what? All practice, you're just going to work on that for the next hour. I want you to work on just staying composed and rising through somebody's hand.
Right.
And, you might walk away from practice not even beat up. Oh, well, I didn't get any work in today. No, you got great work in. This is something that next time you get on the table, you're gonna be like, oh yeah, I did this for an hour. I can
Mm.
do this now. I'm good.
Yeah.
Versus just tearing yourself up every single weekend and then not making progress. And it happens. My
Yeah.
first 8 months into the sport, every time I went to a table practice, it was nothing but destroying my arm.
Yeah.
And I didn't make any improvements like in terms of strength. Of course, I got better at arm wrestling because I arm wrestled a lot.
Right.
But I didn't get any stronger. I don't think I really got any weaker, but I kind of just plateaued because I
Hmm.
was always testing. I was never really building. And sorry to go on that rant there. I
I
feel
think
like it
I
had to be
think
done.
one thing though is good though, because I did the same exact thing. The first 6 to 12 months, you arm wrestle as much as possible. If you wouldn't have arm wrestled that much that first eight months, your fundamentals time frame of learning would have extended, into a year and a half if you
Yeah,
would have packed it all in there. Okay, so 8 months in, boom, packed it all in there. Yes, it was painful. Yes, that was hard.
you get a
But
lot of conditioning in
you
that
get
way too.
you get the conditioning in there if your arm can handle it. If it can handle it,
Mhm.
you build the tendon strength, you build the ligaments. Um, Mainly, you're understanding those fundamentals. Okay, boom, you got those. Now it's time to get in the gym, get stronger, understand the fundamentals, learn how to arm wrestle, then get stronger.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it's another thing. It's an interesting topic to bring up, and we could really kind of spiral this. See, but
Oh,
you're never very
it's
controversial to say this, but I don't think you're ever going to be, if you are training and competing around the country and you are constantly trying to battle higher competition, you're trying to climb that ladder. I don't think you're ever going to be a completely conditioned arm wrestler because every time you take that next step,
mm-hmm.
your arm is going to feel like you've just never arm wrestled before in your life.
Yeah,
I think I had hand and wrist pain after that match with Daniel Worley for 3 or 4 weeks after that match, and it wasn't an injury. It was just, like, oh my gosh, that part of my arm has never been taxed like that.
right,
And it was, just beat up. It didn't hurt to move things around. It didn't hurt to, even get on the table and kind of mess around. Nothing hurt that way. It was just kind of achy from time to time.
right.
And same thing happens. I was a backup field goal kicker because we had a really small high school, and we didn't have any other field goal kickers. So I jumped in there, and I could kick some field goals, and I did it for an entire practice. Like it was, I think, one of our summer practices, so we weren't really doing much. So I kicked field goals for like an hour and a half straight, and the tendons and ligaments in my ankle just refused to work the next day. So my foot was just kind of dropping. And it's the same thing. You've never done that before at that intensity, and now you're taxed. Your body's taxed.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't know, like
It's
if you ever,
the shock factor in your
yeah,
body. You're gonna if you go to lift, 400 pounds. Okay, you've done that time and time again. You put 500 pounds on there and you give it your all, your body's gonna, oh boy, he's gonna say,
well,
hey,
yeah, and
feeling.
and it's perfect example of that is I've never deadlifted 635 pounds until last week. I think was when I did that for two singles.
Nice.
That took everything out of me. I just went home after that. I called it a day. When you kind of channel everything and use every single, because a deadlift is a full body movement at the end of the day.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Full body compound movement, super hard on your core. I did two singles with that, worked up to that weight, of course. I did a lot of warm ups up to that weight.
Yeah.
But after that, there wasn't a whole lot else I was doing that day. It was come in here, lift that weight, and then, once you lift that weight, it really does take a toll on your body.
It's your entire body for sure.
Yeah, 100%. And um,
And not just your body, your mind. You
big
realize how
time.
pissed you have to be for that?
Yeah, big
Oh
time.
my goodness. You probably are mentally fatigued and exhausted just from that.
And it's the same way with arm wrestling. I go up to the table and I have 15 different mental cues I'm telling myself,
Hmm.
do this, do that, stay here, stay there, do this,
The
don't let him
amount of
do this in
focus
the
you have
setup.
to maintain for an extended period of time.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Like if you're if your class runs long, you have to stay in that focused state for 30 to 30 minutes to 60 minutes, maybe even. You never know.
Oh, a
You know,
hundred
you
percent.
have to, and that is mentally exhausting.
Everybody says lock in. It's kind of a trendy thing now to say lock in on social media. And that's like 100% true. You need to mentally lock in before you
Hmm.
could physically do anything.
Oh yeah.
Otherwise, everything you're going to do is just going to be wrong. There's a lot of trained athletes within every sport that practice all week long. And then once they go to compete, they forget everything they know. They didn't forget it. They just couldn't apply it because they couldn't focus. Their mental capacity, they couldn't handle it.
Yeah.
That's a huge
That
thing.
so we need to encourage our uh, new polar friends to lock in, i.e., get
Yes.
technique, lock in on technique, and then once you have that, then you know where to go. You know where your strengths are, you know where your weaknesses are, and I would uh, encourage uh, even seasoned pullers to get the data. You cannot get data from Joe Blow, on, Monday nights, every other Monday night. It's really hard to gauge person to person. The only thing that doesn't lie is that weight. It stays the same weight every time. If you want to be strong in the gym with your style lifts, great. Measure, measure, measure. Keep track of the data. That data is so valuable. Newer guys, as soon as you learn technique, if you want to be strong in specific movements on the table, you can practice those movements in the gym. You got to buy a couple handles. Hey, it's an investment into your arm wrestling career. Get the data, write it down, make sure that you're keeping track where you are at in the strengths and weaknesses that you have.
And at the end of the day, I
So,
do want to, kind of let everybody know this as well. Um, Strength is the potential for muscle growth. Muscle growth is the potential for strength. So, your body at say the average 150-pound dude is only going to be able to lift so much. With them, not even gaining weight, but gaining muscle is going to kind of make that bottle, say it's a bottle of water, make that bottle a little bit bigger, make the
mm,
bottle a little bit bigger. More
yep,
strength can be, so you could gain 2 or 3 pounds over the course of 6 months, but your potential for strength goes through the roof because
mm-hmm,
you've kind of given yourself a little bit more to work with. And it's the same way with arm wrestling. At the end of the day, if you want stronger pronation, stronger back pressure, whatever, it's all relying on your arm. So I don't care how strong your pronation is. If your arm can't keep up with your hand, or vice versa, if your hand can't keep
right,
up with your arm, you know, you can lift 100 pounds whatever way you want to do it, but doing it, and keeping everything together versus, okay, my arm's a little weak, so this 100-pound pronation lift is going to be more dependent on my upper back and me leaning backwards versus
right,
my hand's weak, so this pronation lift is going to
right,
be nothing but a bicep curl and my hand's going to dump. Well, you're not really training your pronation then.
right,
So it's really hard for me to watch some of these arm wrestling training videos I see on Facebook every single day where people are, doing just absurd amount of weight, but nothing is right. I mean, like, you're not doing the correct exercise because you're not targeting, the correct muscle or whatever you're trying to do, whether you're trying to pronate, rise, supinate, um, side pressure is all in its own. I think that's, just something that you kind of build
yeah,
through arm wrestling and over time and also in the gym with thousands of different lifts. At the end of the day, your chest, your front delt, your lat, your rear delt, all these muscles, your arm, your bicep, your tricep, your forearm, all these muscles, if they all get stronger, your side pressure is going to get a little stronger,
right.
just the way it works. But I see these movements all the time where people are just butchering like it's bad. I'll see somebody do a riser lift with their hand dumped, and it's like that's not a riser lift, man. Like it's a
Yeah,
great low hand top roll, I guess. I don't know why you're,
it's a good way to get injured.
for sure. That's the riser is one of the biggest, like that's one of my biggest no-nos when it comes to hitting heavyweight. Like
Oh, never, no.
that doesn't need to
I've
be
ever used like
ridiculously
25
strong.
pounds. That was it. Like even on the riser, like, and that was with the strap wrapped around my wrist and
Yeah.
doing. I'm like, bruh. I tried that with just grabbing it, and man, that is painful.
So something I used to do a lot for the riser before I started using kind of more like the belt style, and I still do this, probably once a week. I just used to do it a lot more frequently. Is I used to just grab a kettlebell, put my thumb over top of the, and then just straight up,
Yeah,
and I would have a 10, a 15, a 20, and I think like a 25, and I would just work up and down the ladder until my hand was just fried. Then I give it about 5 minutes, 6 minutes, and then work from the top all the way back down the ladder, and then that's it. You know, because now on the table, when they say ready go, if we get into a war, my riser has not only is it stronger because I trained it. At the end of the day, it's going to be stronger if you're training it versus if you're not training it at all.
correct.
But now the muscular endurance is a huge thing, and that's something else in this sport that I feel like
Yeah,
doesn't get highlighted enough.
yes,
I don't care about a one rep max on anything because that's only telling me you're strong for 3 seconds.
right.
You're strong for 3 seconds. Your work capacity is not going to be very high. Your intensity is always really high. Your volume is always really low. You
That means
know,
you're out in round one and two.
yeah. I mean, all I have to do is, yeah, I'll let you fold my hand in the first round. You can pin me. Second round, third round comes in. Oh, now your hand's not doing much. You only had that 0 to 100, a couple times. Gas tanks, it's gone now.
Yeah,
And that's something I see a lot. And a lot of people talk about that, getting gassed out. And it's like, well, if you want to stop getting gassed out, you have to
yeah,
focus on the gas tank.
yeah,
And it sucks. I hate doing it. I hate
yeah,
building. I hate doing high reps all the time, but I do them all the time on every lift because the core is one of the biggest things too.
yeah.
I was doing sets of 10 on squats.
A lot of guys just run out of breath. They can't. They don't know how to breathe.
Yeah. I
Leave
mean,
the table.
you can sit there in bed every single night before you go to bed and do bracing exercises. You can do them anywhere. Like, all you have to do is properly breathe, brace, and hold it. And hold that brace, then exhale. Breathe a couple
Yeah,
times.
I bet swimmers would be great on the table as
Oh,
far as endurance.
for sure. And that's why you see a lot of these blue collar guys are, really good coming into the sport when they're newer. And it's like, well, this dude carries, 5 gallon buckets up and down driveways all day long, whatever, into the house, up and down stairs. You're not doing that with an unbraced core. Your core is being braced. Every time you bend over to pick something up, you brace your core,
Yeah.
you know. So that's, yeah, the core is huge, huge.
Oh, huge, huge. I definitely need to start doing more core work. You
Well,
know,
and
for
and
my
a lot
you
of people
know, right up.
and I don't even think like sit-ups, like, not just strong abs, but just that bracing,
Yeah,
you
your
know,
back is very important.
huge.
Your core, your strength, your obliques, everything. Your leg is usually wrapped around the table leg, which is
Yeah.
connected to your abdomen, which is
Yeah.
connected to your shoulders, which is connected to your arm. Everything works together as one unit.
100%. Your body has to work together. Arm wrestling is a compound movement at the end of the day, just like the squat, the bench, the deadlift, a sprint,
Yeah,
whatever you want to do,
together.
it's all a compound movement. So, you not saying that everybody needs to go out there and train that specific way, but whatever you can do as far as compound movements go to always be bracing hard. And sets of 10, a lot of people were telling me they're like, you need to breathe more, you need to breathe. I'm like, I'm fine. Unless I pass out, that's a different story. But if I can sit there, breathe and brace and move weight for the next 8 to 12 reps, that's
Yeah,
great. Because
that
now I can sit there and
those
if
are
somebody
long, those are
surges on the
long
table.
those are long enough sets. you know,
Yeah.
that's that's fine. Now if you're only doing sets of three or reps of three, or
Yeah,
what,
exactly.
3 reps, and then you're just like still out of breath, like, I don't know if that's really working the breathability of the workout.
100%. And that's why, a lot of the squatting and the benching and the deadlifting and these other movements help out so much. Because even if I'm doing heavy sets of five, whether it's heavy sets of five, three sets of 10, sets of 12, an AMRAP, a set of 30, whatever it is, if you're constantly doing that breathing and bracing, it becomes second nature. Then when you get on the table and somebody surges on you, and
Yeah,
you're braced and you're able to hold that and you're like, oh, I can hold this all day long because I had 500 pounds on my back, and before I could even do the lift, I had to breathe and brace for 5 seconds before I even started squatting.
exactly.
So yeah, and that's one of the first things I learned when I got into lifting weights in general. Before I even touched a barbell at when I started powerlifting at the Dirty Gym in Dayton, Ohio, they had me lay on my back, put a foam roller between my knees, and hold it there. Um, and they had me just do breathing and bracing exercises for like the
Yeah,
first half hour. And I don't know why. I think the foam roller between the knees just kind of made it to where you had to keep everything together and not kind of go all over the place. I don't really know. Um, at the time, I hated it. I was like, I just want to lift weights. But it's the same way arm wrestlers feel when they first get into the sport. They just want to pull. They don't want to do the fundamentals. They don't want to, you know, prepare for what they're getting themselves into.
yeah. When it comes down to it, we got a lot of people in the sport that are in it for fun. It is just the way that it is. You know,
Yeah.
Me as a dad, if this becomes unfun and if I'm not having fun doing it, I'm just not going to do it. You know,
Yeah.
just as a father, I got a job to go to and I got a family to provide for. If it becomes a nuisance or if I become irritated by it and all this other BS, then I'm not going to do it. It's not going to be worth my time. But I love this sport. It's so beautiful once you understand what you're looking at. It is
Oh
one of
yeah.
the most beautiful sports I've ever seen. But you have to understand it. That's why it's so niche, and that's why it is uh, it, the technical side of it is so pretty. That's why I love watching top rollers battle each other.
Yeah.
So awesome. So awesome. You see those elbows moving across the pad and you see their bodies moving and stuff. Oh my goodness, so beautiful.
There's
Love.
1,000 different, game plans you can have off the ready go with that 7x7 pad of which way your elbow is going to start, finish, where you're going to kind of stop, slow down, shoot to the other side. I mean, there's so many different ways. And you kind of learn that as you're pulling. If somebody's trying to hook you aggressively off the rib, you're not going to just fight straight through their hand with a top roll. You're going to have to kind of, run a little bit to kind of
Yep.
get to that point to where they run out of pad, you run out of pad, but you've still got so much more room to move back where they're out of room. The only way they can go at that point is back.
Positional awareness, body manipulation, and then attack.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, you everybody kind of develops their own style and it's all person to person based. Like I've always been a fast and explosive athlete within all the sports I've competed in. So with arm wrestling, I treat it as a fast and explosive sport. Now the
Yep.
great thing with that is off the first ready go, I can learn a ton from being fast and explosive because one, I can get away if I have to. Like, okay, this dude has a really
Yep.
strong hand. I need to take a different approach. Or this dude has a really strong arm. I can feel that right off the rip. But having that fast and explosive, start, uh, it kind of throws them off, track too.
Yeah.
Um,
The ability to put somebody outside of their shoulder faster than they can think is is way more valuable than people think. Like a lot of guys, it is just the way that we are. We slow pull and practice because it hurts less at the end of the day. fast twitch movements in practice, it hurts sometimes. It's just the way
Yes.
that body's not conditioned for it. It hurts. That's why we don't do it as Americans, because we got jobs to go to. We don't want to be in pain all day, for the next 3 days after a practice. It sucks. So we tend to not practice those fast twitch muscles as much, and it's understandable. It all comes down to, like we've been talking, what do you want out of this sport? Do you want to have fun? You want to compete a little bit? Okay, your kids are growing up a little bit. Okay, I got time for something. Let's have some fun with this. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. If you want to be a high level puller like yourself, that all that the lead up to everything,
Yeah.
it changes. You got to do way different tactics.
Oh, 100%.
It,
There's that risk to reward factor for every puller.
yeah, it's
And I
what
mean,
what do you want out of this sport? And then there is lanes for each and every one of you.
yeah, absolutely. If you want to have fun on the weekends and go practice and hit a tournament once a year and enjoy that,
Yeah,
100% go right ahead. But if you want to be, at that higher level spot, then that risk to reward, you got to kind of sit there and weigh your options. Like, okay, is this worth it to me? Is it not? And then once you make that choice, it's like, okay, well, now I'm going to have to deal with, and I deal with it every week, being a little beat up at work, being a
mm,
little, tired, playing with my daughter and just feeling drained, leading up to a competition, mentally exhausted.
yeah.
You're spending money on recovery. You're spending money on, uh, you know, just so
Nutrition.
many different things. I mean, you've got so much more to deal with. Everybody wants to be, that number one guy, but nobody understands what that number one guy has to sacrifice in order to, hold that spot. Like, when we look at guys like, and this has been brought up a lot, but you look at guys like Levant, and people are like, oh, he's putting his health at risk, and it's like, well, everybody fighting for that number one spot is like, it's just the
Oh,
way it is. Nobody's a 450-pound human being with that kind of power, endurance, without doing that. But at the end of the day, do we want to see that? Because it's entertaining, and that's what the people want to see. You know, we don't watch the NFL to watch, flag football. We want to see the fastest, strongest, most athletic
yeah.
players, best of the best, 11 versus 11, playing against each
It,
other.
it all comes down to how many tickets are being sold.
Yeah, 100%.
That's it.
And that's where these guys get paid. That's
Yeah.
where these guys get paid. Um, but and it's kind of upset me a little bit in the past when I've seen some comments. I've seen some particular comments from some people that I'm not going to name any names, of course, but people calling Levon like a human science experiment and this and that, and everybody can have their own opinion. We are all granted free will, and that's never going to change. We're always allowed to have our own opinion. However, I think when you start disrespecting others in that same sense is where it becomes an issue. Um,
Some
yeah,
people are willing to do what it takes to get to a certain level. It's just the way that, like you
people
said,
are going to remember that guy. People are going to remember that guy for a long time. And at the end of the day, arm wrestling since Levon has been at the top of the sport has grown. Whether people want to say it's grown from Devin or from Michael Todd or whoever, that dude is still at the top of the sport and arm wrestling, and he has played a role in growing the sport. So when other arm wrestlers want to take shots at him, to me it just kind of comes across as more of a jealousy thing than anything. If you're really concerned about the dude, write a letter, send it to him, but throwing it on social media for everybody to see is just you trying to get attention from that, and you just trying to kind of publicly show that something aggravates you about it,
yeah,
and it's just not necessary. I think a lot of and that's the same way with a lot of the problems that we have just as a whole in the world. If a lot less negativity was shown, everything would be better.
yeah,
um,
we are a fallen species, and we
yeah,
are. sinful in nature. It's just the way that it is. We got a
Absolutely.
we got a couple comments to here to go through before I move on to the last topic for this show. We got maybe about 15 minutes or left. James Matheny, he's here. What's up, James? He said he was always looking forward to watching the podcast. Thanks for that, buddy. Uh,
Awesome.
the Drew 24 said seeing your own polls is invaluable too. So that's good. He definitely agreed with the recording aspect. James also said, believe it or not, I got a 400-pound bench and it doesn't help me whatsoever.
Once you figure out how to use it, it will.
Yeah, exactly. That's
Once you
exactly
figure it out.
like,
Yeah.
man, it's beneficial once you understand how to utilize said motions.
Yep.
Uh, Colby was hearing what we were putting down earlier for sure. Um, Dan Swords, he's in the chat. You guys are studs. Hope to see you at another event, Cody. Another VAL event. Billy, we got to get you down here sometime. Dan, I'd love to come down there sometime. As soon as I get a
Very
deal,
good promotion.
I
One
would.
of the best promotions I've ever pulled under. Everything was very professional. The refing was great. The weigh-ins were when they said they were going to be, where they were going to be at the times they said they were going to be. That's huge to me. You advertise something
Yeah,
and then you're
do it.
wrong.
Yeah, do it.
I
Get
mean,
it
just be a man of your word. But
exactly.
yeah,
Uh,
I mean, I have no complaints with the VAL aside
yeah,
from it being, a little bit of a drive, you know,
it is what it is.
which welcome to arm wrestling, I
Yeah.
guess.
Josh Bunner, he said, "Thanks for justifying my love for bench press."
100%. Once you
Uh,
figure out
uh,
how to engage your front delt and your chest and your lats and, everything else that a 400-pound bench takes to do, once you figure out how to translate that to the table,
yeah,
if you put Usain Bolt on a football field, he's not going to be a good running back, but you teach him the fundamentals and you teach him how to juke, how to spin, how to, lower his shoulder.
going
That
this way.
dude's going to be a good running back.
Going, he might not be fast going this way, but he's fast going this way for sure. Uh,
100%.
Twisted, he said, any Badger battles coming up? I think I'm gonna try to host a practice Badger battle in the backyard once it gets warm enough. I got plenty of parking out back. I think I'm gonna probably try to do something like that for Badger battles 4. I think is what it is.
That could be next week or next month here in Ohio.
Yeah, 3. I can't. Yeah, exactly. You never know. It could be 70 degrees and sunny. We'll see. Dan Sword says, "What are your goals in arm wrestling?" Mine, I'll get it out of the way. To have fun and teach. I love teaching new guys fundamentals, how to stay safe, how to learn technique. Those are the two things that I love to do. I love to have fun and I love teaching new guys. So that's my immediate goal and long-term goal.
And we need that because, like me personally, I'm not a very good teacher. Like, I've never been. I mean, when it comes to certain things, I can teach basic footwork and boxing, or I can teach how to squat, bench, and deadlift. But when it comes to different athletes, different body mechanics, different people, different learning capacities, I'm not the guy. I'm just not good at it. Not everybody who is a good puller is a good teacher. Not
Yes.
every good teacher is a good puller. Not every good bench presser can teach a bench press. It's the student, the teacher to student thing. There's probably plenty of teachers in schools who were never valedictorians, were never great
Right.
students, but they
Yeah.
figured out how to teach it, and
Mhm.
they can teach it.
Yeah.
And I actually just found this out when I was trying to teach a newer puller, and I was like, I'm not very good at this. I was like, I'm struggling to get him to comprehend what I'm saying, and that's why I was like, okay, come at it from a completely different approach. Try that. Still
Right.
didn't work. I was like, all right, I can't teach you.
Yeah.
Just
I-
kind of told him,
in the last couple years is I love arm wrestling theory. The
yeah,
theory of arm wrestling is just something I can get behind. Like being able to talk to somebody. That's why I'd love to be able to talk to Neil Pickup one day. Be just the way that he teaches, and I watched some of the videos that he was doing with Brian, and then just the way that he was explaining it, I was like, oh, that's music to my ears. I love arm wrestling theory. Why do we do things the way that we do? Why do we put our feet here? Why do we move in this way? Why does our shoulder go that way and this way? Oh, it's just so nice. It's so beautiful once you understand it.
Well, because at the end of the day, there's no cookie cutter method to being the greatest arm wrestler, and there's no best, there's no best move, best position, best setup. It's all really just experimental. And that's what makes it really hard to teach. It bench pressing, there's pretty straightforward, ways that the bar should travel and the tempo for the average guy. But then you get a guy with longer arms or a shorter torso, or there's so many different variables that can play into, okay, now we have to teach this guy a little differently. I can't imagine trying to teach Brian Shaw, who's like 6'8", how to arm wrestle on a table that's at his knees.
That's one thing I was thinking about. Like, I would love to see a promotion that is hosting these larger athletes. I would love to see them customize an arm wrestling
Giants table.
table.
Yeah.
So say you have each of the pullers that are attending an event, and I understand this might not be feasible or logistical or even money wise it might cost too much. I don't understand, but I would love to see a just an enhanced, larger, maybe a little bit taller, slightly wider arm wrestling table for these 6'5" plus
Yeah.
giants that are on the table. Like Brian, watching him squat and slither under this table, it's like me trying, him trying to get into a clown car or something like that. You know what I mean?
We
Like
need the reverse of a riser.
would he be able to move with space? You
Yeah.
know, like, oh man, that would be a game changer for him.
Yeah, we need the reverse of a riser. So whatever a riser is, we need that going the opposite way. So we need a table on a platform that we can just
But
pull that out.
yeah, just a pit. You got like a
For
four.
that one time when Brian Shaw shows up or any other 6'8" athletes. But yeah, I would, I think that would be pretty cool. But then Eddie Hall would have been at a disadvantage because I think he's only, and not saying he's short,
Well,
but he's 6'3", so he's a little more, you
yeah,
know.
I'm saying like in that case, if you extend the leg posts on an arm wrestling table, say you extend them 2 inches or 3 inches, and then you widen the table. These gentlemen are roughly somewhat, the width of them might be similar, but obviously the height is different, right?
Yeah,
Okay, so you extend those legs a little bit. Okay, then the shorter gentleman maybe needs to use the riser then. But it's all about getting their waists at the tabletop, right?
100%. Yeah.
Get where each guy can stand up the way that they feel comfortable and get their waist at the tabletop. That would be huge for those giants like that. And even just the tall guys, even for Devin, because Devin's what, like 6'5", something like that, six
Yeah.
four, something like that. It would be even better for him because he's able to actually stand up instead of like, you know,
Yeah, I agree.
shove his body underneath the table. Tighten table, yeah.
Um, as far as what did Daniel ask? The goals for arm wrestling, or
Yeah. And Swords wants to know your goals.
um, I don't know. I've always been a very competitive person within any sport I've ever done. When I played high school football, I wanted to go to the NFL. When I boxed, I wanted to become a professional boxer. Started training mixed martial arts. Wanted to go to the UFC. I've never So I'll just say I want to be number one. I don't know what I want to be number one in,
Yeah.
whether it's like promotion wise or, but I want to be number one first and foremost in the United States of America. And then, from there we'll reassess and see where I'm at in life. I don't have a very long time to get good at this sport.
Yeah.
I've got a 3-year-old daughter. Um, you know, she's already starting to play sports. And, when she's 13, 14, 15, I'm not going to be missing her events for a competition.
Yeah.
So the way I see it is, and that's why, people ask me a lot because they're like, is the gym therapy for you? The gym can somewhat be stressful for me, especially leading up to competition, because I have very high expectations of myself. And I feel like I don't have enough time to do it. So,
Yeah.
no, yeah, I guess to answer your question, I just want to be the best. I know that's something a lot of people say, but that's I for me that's why I got into the sport, was to be great at it. And you know, again, like I said, I don't have very much time to get there, so we need to hurry this up.
When it comes down to it, we are finite beings. We only have a limited amount of time on this planet.
Absolutely.
We, our days could be cut short in an instant. We could have an aneurysm right now and just be gone. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah,
we
it really does happen like that. I mean, it's that simple.
we definitely need to be thankful first off for every breath that we have been given. Utilize the time that you have, guys, because it's short. It is short. If there's something in this world that you want to do, I suggest you to work at it now. You know, why
Yeah.
wait?
I
Why?
have I have the old Rocky sticker on my windshield or on my rearview mirror of my truck. The quote unquote "There is no tomorrow," and people make fun of me for it all the time. They're like, you know what? Because it's a Rocky quote, but no, like to me, it's very real. Like, if I were to pass away tomorrow, theoretically, is my daughter going to look at me and say that I was a good dad? Are people going to say I was a good man? Are people going to say I was a good arm wrestler? Was I a good employee? All the above. So I think every day, again, being thankful for everything that we do have in this life, because we're all very fortunate, whether we want to, think that or not, um, to be breathing,
Or,
right now. I'm super happy for.
yeah, just that when you think about it, like, what's the likelihood that you're actually born? The
Yeah.
odds
Yeah.
that you're actually born.
Oh man, we're gonna go into this rabbit hole now.
Oh, well, we can go down that some other time, but
We need to. We need
um,
to have a podcast in the future where it's not arm wrestling related and it's all just life.
we
Because
we
some of these, I feel like some of these episodes do stem into that. We start talking about arm wrestling, but it goes so well. It goes hand in hand with life itself, and we start, talking about that. So we definitely need to have a
it
winning side without the win or something. We need to figure it out and just have a live podcast and just talk about things like that, and
yeah.
that would be good.
We got a couple comments here I did want to get to. Twisted said, "Big guns out of Lancaster. Love your events. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it." Adam Finley said, "I need to make it down to one of your practices so you can show me a few things, Billy." Adam. I'm gonna try to make it up to the Youngstown crew this Sunday. I'm gonna try to get up there if I can. Uh, Colby Eaker likes the Titan table, baby. Hey, we got Titan House. Neil Pickup's got the Titan House. Let's create a Titan table for these guys. Johnny Jarrett's in here. Johnny, big dog. He's cutting to 76. No, that would be
Damn.
so. Already, Johnny is already lean as it
He's
is.
always been very lean.
Very lean. And I was just,
Personally, Johnny, I don't
you
think you
guys
should do
had,
it. I think you're gonna get hurt.
you
That
guys
terrifies me.
in your beginning, like when you guys were both into it,
What is it?
you and Johnny had a left-handed battle back
Oh
when,
yeah, yeah. We had some really good matches back in 21 and beginning of 22.
yeah,
Um, I For me, Johnny, I don't think you should cut to 76. I
I don't.
think you're already crazy lean as is. And
I,
personally, I think being lean in this sport is counterproductive because that means you're a little, you're a little on the drier side of things. You're a little more likely to get injured. So,
here you go.
um,
See, just contemplating.
yes, no, stay at 98. You're
just,
good.
just
You're fine.
he's fine. He's fine.
76. I think that's where
I think he's walking around.
Cooper's down at 176 now.
He's walking around at 190 now. So I mean,
Johnny is.
personally, I could do a 10, 12 pound water cut easy. I
Well,
have I have the mass to lose it.
well, you got the
I'm getting
water.
extra on him already.
I don't know if Johnny's got the water. I don't think it's. I think it's gone. I think to get to that is that's a lot because I mean we're talking like you'd be ready to step on stage, like get a spray tan, go compete at a bodybuilding show after you compete
Might
on
as
the
well.
table.
He's veiny enough.
I know it. Yeah,
Hey,
he's super lean,
love a vascular man.
man. At some point in my life, I am gonna hop on a bodybuilding stage and do that and say I've done it and have it done. I've got a lot of little bucket list things I want to do, um, before I become old and crippled. Can't
Before
do anything.
in the show, you brought up earlier that you want to be uh, thought of as a good dad and all this stuff, and a good arm wrestler and a good human being. Um, what I will say for my aspect, I could care less what people think of me as a man or as a father or anything. I want to see. Well, I guess I would love for people to see Jesus Christ through me. That's my
Which
one.
is ultimately gonna, show that you were a good man and a good father. Because if you do follow all
I'd
those,
rather, because somebody said, I can't remember who it was, but somebody goes, "Oh, you're a good dude," and I'm like, no, man, I am a sinful human being, and I don't want to do the good things. Like the only reason why I do anything good or have anything good in me is because of Jesus Christ. That's it.
absolutely,
He is
we,
good in me personally. You know, everything good that has ever stemmed out of my life is because of him. You
yeah,
know, I just want to make sure everybody knows that I am nothing.
I agree 100%. And ultimately, I think that does stem into being a good dad, being a good man, being a good
Yeah,
human being.
yeah.
Of course, but I get what you're saying. Bigger picture there,
Oh yeah.
um, is
That's
to see
yeah,
that.
that's that podcast where we life lessons
We're
or
gonna
what.
get we're gonna get one of those here soon, maybe episode 10, because that's like a milestone, right? 10, 50, 100, whatever milestones you want to do. 10 would be a good one. The life, the winning side without the win. The side, I don't know. We've got a
We'll
winning at life, the
something.
winning at life side.
Yeah. Yeah, there you
Never
go.
mind. I'm
Yeah.
not very good at brainstorming.
Hey,
Just
well,
found that out.
well, if anybody has any ideas on that, shoot us a DM either.
Yes.
You know, obviously new pullers, if you guys have any questions or comments or any videos you'd like to send us that you would like us to give you our opinions on or anything like that, don't feel like you can't do that. 100% send us your stuff, any questions, comments, videos, anything like that. We're more than happy to help you guys. I would rather somebody message me again if I don't get to it or anything like that. I would rather somebody get a hold of me and me help them versus them not ask questions and then get injured.
Yeah,
Right?
absolutely.
So it would be beneficial for anybody to just get the information. So any new guys, don't feel shy. Make sure you reach out to anybody with more knowledge. You know, it's so beneficial. But anyway, guys, that's gonna wrap up. Twisted. What did he say? Johnny said Johnny said he'd watch that podcast for sure. Yeah,
There we
we'll
go. We
we'll
got
do
to
it.
do it now. Already got
Yeah.
a viewer.
Twisted said, "How do you do a call out?" Well, that just depends, brother.
Depends
Call
what
out.
kind of person you are, I
Yeah.
think. To me, I've never been the kind of person to get on Facebook and post publicly, like, quote unquote, hey, dude, I want to pull you. Let's make it happen. I've always been the kind of person to text somebody and be like, hey,
Mhm.
uh, I want the opportunity, or I think this should happen. Go to them directly. I think it's a little more respectful than putting them on the spot. The end of the day, you never know what's going on in somebody's life. You never know how they're going to respond.
Yeah.
You might, upset them a little bit that way, or they might take it as disrespectful. So I think it's just always best to go to the source itself.
Especially if you know them. Yes.
Yeah,
If
100%.
that you don't like or that you're necessarily not too fond of, hey,
Things change.
things change. You can
Yeah,
on Facebook, hey, I'm calling this person out for X, Y, and Z, or whatever.
yeah, absolutely.
So you just make the call and see what happens. But like you said, like Cody said, if it's somebody that you know and you want like to get a match with them, I would say just DM them.
Yeah, it's simple.
Simple.
Nine
Or
times out of 10, they're gonna thank you, for going about it that way. Anyways, it's a little more
one I
respectful.
think too is a possibility if you have a person that you go to their events, right? Say somebody uses Randall and they go to a lot of Randall's events. Okay. And you want to call out a guy for a match. You can just ask the promoter, hey, I'd like to see if I can get a match with this person.
Yeah,
Okay. And the promoter can message said party, hey, this person is interested in a match. Are you interested? Boom. And then there you go. The
I've
promoter,
gotten a couple matches that way. I've
ex-
gotten a couple matches that way.
ex-
You go to the promoter, they're able to reach out because with this sport being how small it is, especially when you start kind of level jumping, if you're pulling guys that live 8, 10, 12 hours away, they got to get paid. I mean, they're not showing up for free. So it's a lot easier
well,
for
that
you to have a promoter tell them, you
is
know,
is the upper echelons for sure.
yeah, I mean, like me personally, if somebody wants to pull me in a super match and they are calling me out, um, and I'm here, they're here personally, I need to be paid for that, for the travel, or they need to travel to me and I'll be unpaid. That's the way I see things. You know, if it's a win-win, or if it's I never want to say it's a lose-lose because every time you win on the table is a good thing. There's not much to gain from the match, and you're wanting me to travel. I've got to be compensated for that.
Right.
Um, but if you're going to travel to me, I'm already going to be there. Things work out. Different story.
Yeah.
Or if I just like you as a human being, I might travel a couple hours and pull you and not expect anything at all because that's
Yeah.
just how it is. But you start talking crazy,
The
yeah, not
price goes.
happening. Then I might just not do it at all.
Yeah.
I mean,
That
but
can affect it for sure. Like if you make it uncomfortable and stuff like that, and start being weird about stuff, it's just like no,
yeah,
not even to think about it. But that's how call outs work. If anybody has any questions or any call outs that they'd like to do, get a hold of us. If we can facilitate, a match, I'm more than happy to do it. I might be having a badger battle, maybe in the backyard. So, we'll see what happens, and, there are a lot of promoters out there, if anybody wants matches at a certain time, hey, all you got to do is ask a promoter. Most of the time, they're willing to let you have a match at their event because it's free publicity, it's free marketing. It's just the way that it is sometimes. You know. So, but yeah, he goes, I'm an amateur 154 puller. He gave me a good battle. Yeah, just message me, brother. sounds good. He said, "Oh, sounds good. I'll be in touch." Cool. But yeah, so that's gonna wrap it up for this episode of the Winning Side podcast. You know, try to be able to battle on your losing side, yes, but stay safe. But always try to get your opponent to your winning side of the table. Cody, thank you so much for being my co-host and being here for the podcast. Thank you so much, brother.
Thank you for having me. I
Yep.
appreciate the opportunity.
Everybody in the chat, thank you very much for being here. Thanks for all your questions and comments. We thank you so much for everything that you guys do for us. If you can, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button. That helps out the algorithm. You know how that goes. But also, Cody, you don't have a YouTube, do you?
I do. I do. I need to post on there a little
You need
more.
to.
I've got some matches on there. I've got some lifts on there. Um, don't know the URL, but if you look up Cody Smith Arm Wrestling, you'll find me. There's not any other Cody Smiths as far as I'm aware. So that arm
I'll
wrestle.
I'll try to edit the video and I'll try to get because I don't even know if I'm even subscribed to your channel or not.
I want to say it used to be in my Instagram bio. I don't know if it is anymore.
I'll figure it out and I'll put it in this live streams um, info, whatever it
Okay.
is.
I think I need to post some of those highlight reels, kind of
Yeah,
motivational
in the description.
videos.
Description. But once again, thanks everybody for being here. If you don't know Jesus, get a relationship with him today. It's the most important thing that you'll ever do in your life. God bless everybody. Thanks for coming. Thanks, Cody. You guys
Yep.
have a